Hello, everybody. Did you know that the face on the $20 bill did not like the face of the guy on the $10 bill? One is Thomas Jefferson, and the other is Alexander Hamilton, and they were political enemies. And I learned this by this book called Hamilton, Founding Father. And this was an interesting book. And I'm going to talk about some of the things I learned from reading this book. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. I am Peter the Book Lover. I like to read books. I like to talk about books. I also like to read poetry, and I write poetry, and I share poetry. And I want to thank you for being here. For the people that were here before that have given me likes, I want to thank you for those likes. For the people that are going to give me likes in the future, thank you for those likes. For the people that are not going to give me likes but still watch, I want to give you a like because it's really awesome that you're here. Now, I want to talk about this book, Hamilton. And I also want to talk about this book too. These are the two books that I got all this information for this video. And they're pretty interesting reads. I really enjoyed both of these books. Okay, the way that I'm going to talk about this book is I'm going to go over 12 different facts, and I've got the facts listed, my bullet points, and I hope we can enjoy this review. Now, what I mentioned earlier was dividing money. Like, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson did not like each other. And there is a good chance they could have dueled. They didn't duel, but there's a very good chance you could duel because back in those days, this is the 1700s, and there was a lot of dueling back there, and it was a very common thing. And they did not get along with each other. And that's one interesting thing I learned about this book, was I learned a little bit about dueling. And this is my second point. The first thing I want to talk about, the fighting money, and now I'm going to talk about dueling. Now, back then in the age of dueling, most of the time it ended with an apology. That's what both parties were really looking for. But the thing about it is, if neither party wanted to back down, they would stand and face each other, and if they still didn't want to back down, some people would even shoot in the air and then shoot again to prove that, but some people will just shoot. So some people actually did die in duels. And one interesting thing is, if you ever hear somebody call somebody else a rascal, that was serious fighting words back in the day. Calling somebody a rascal really would upset somebody, and they would demand an interview, which is a duel. And that's how you would request a duel. You'd ask for an interview. I demand an interview. And the guy would either refuse, and if you refused the duel, you were a coward, so you didn't want to refuse the duel. So duels were a popular thing. And the thing about I want to talk about, if you're a person that's got a book about Alexander Hamilton on your shelf and you want to get to it soon, maybe you want to skip this, go read the book, and then come back and watch this video, because this is the kind of like a spoiler, because I've read two books about Alexander Hamilton, and the reason why I'm talking about dueling is revealed in the last chapter, and both books do the same thing. So it's kind of like I'm giving you a spoiler, but but if you got a book, I'm going to reveal it at the end of the video, but if you have that book on your shelf, please read that book and then come back. Especially if you have one of these two books. Trust me, you could read both of these books very quickly. It won't take you more than 3 days to read each one of those, even if you're taking a long time. This one I read in maybe 4 hours. You know, I don't know if maybe even less, maybe 3 hours, because this was really short. This may have taken me like 3 hours to read. Very quick read. Anyways, let's get into who this book is about. This book that I'm reviewing. This is Alexander Hamilton, and he was the first Secretary of Treasury of the United States. He was born in January 11th, 1755, in Nevis, which is like the islands by America. It's really close to Cuba. It's really close to Jamaica. A lot of those Caribbean islands. He was born in the Caribbean islands. He was grew up around a lot of sugar cane, and there was a lot of people farming the sugar cane because it was very valuable back then. Point number 4. He was born to James Hamilton and Rachel Fachette. Now, Rachel Fachette was already married before. This is her second husband, and there is a chance that she had an affair with Thomas Stevens. So there is a chance that that could be Alexander Hamilton's father, because they also had a strong family resemblance, because he kind of has to deal with him later, his relatives. So, but yeah, he was born to Rachel Fachette and James Hamilton, and he's got a stepfather. Bullet point 5. He's got a stepfather named Johann Michael Lavian. In 1768, Hamilton and his mother get sick. She dies, but he lives, and he and his brother is left because his father has been gone since 1765, and this right now is about 1768. So she dies, and he's left. There's something left over, but the stepfather comes in. What's his name again? Johann. Johann steps in again. Not a really nice guy. He was really a jerk, but he came back in and made sure that neither Hamilton or his brother James got any money. And he did it. He actually gave money to somebody that had money and left them broke. But then, okay, then we're going to go after that. Okay, then 6. After his mother dies and he's left penniless, Peter Lytton becomes a guardian. He winds up committing suicide. And once again, Alexander gets left with nothing. And then after that, the brother of Peter Lytton, James Lytton, he dies and he has nothing. But at the same time, point number 7, he's a good student and he shows a lot of promise. So the people of Nevis sent him to America. So he goes to America and he goes to school and he arrives in New Jersey. This is 1772 when he goes to America. And not long after being in America, he starts getting the American spirit and he joins the American Army. And he joins the Army in 1775, and he stays in the military until 1782. And when he's in the military, he's really close to George Washington. Him and George Washington are really close. Although there's a time to where he starts getting really aggravated with George Washington because George Washington did not want to promote him because he was worried about him, but he wanted to advance. And they had a little beef, but they got over it. And they had a good relationship the whole time they were in war together. Then after that, he leaves the war. And okay, now we're at point 8. Then he does a couple things at this point. He in 1780 he marries Elizabeth, and they have a lot of kids together. They have 8 kids in the end. And then after that, he starts a law practice, and that is in 1783. And then after that, he establishes the Bank of New York, and that is in 1784. And then after that, he joins up with Washington when George Washington becomes the president of the United States, and he appoints him to be Secretary of the Treasury on an interesting date, which is known to America today as 9/11. 9/11, 1789 is the day he was appointed Secretary of the State. And mind you, this guy wasn't American born. Guy was born in the Caribbean, and he came to America. So this is like a groundbreaking story because it goes to show you could be from another country and come and be a part of this country. He could have never become president of the United States because the rule is you have to be born here to become an American president. But you could be in our government as high up as the Secretary of the Treasury being born in another country. And it was controlled by England. You know, it was the Caribbeans at the time was an English providence, right? Okay, so he becomes the Secretary of Treasury, and then Washington has his term. There's a bunch of things that happens in between that I kind of covered. More things that I didn't list here in my notes. And believe me, I took a lot of notes to make this video. But so after this, he's with Washington, and the very last thing that he does in the political realm that's he's known for is he wrote George Washington's farewell address, and apparently it was really fantastic. Also, somewhere along this time, he wrote the Federalist Papers because he was from the party of the Federalist Party, and people like Jefferson and Aaron Burr, they both were anti-federalist. But there is something more about Burr that I'm going to get into. But right now, before I get into the next part, is that Burr actually grew up with Hamilton. There was a time he knew him, and then as they came back together, you know, he knew him in America. They grew up in America and went to school together or something. And then they ran into each other, and they were political enemies for the longest time. Now, one of the things that Hamilton did not like about him is that Aaron Burr had this system to where he was promised to give people clean drinking water, but he kind of ripped off the people and used the funds for other purposes. And one more thing about Alexander Hamilton that I didn't point out that this book points out is that he was against slavery. He did not like slavery pretty much through his whole career because he grew up around the Caribbean islands, and slavery is mentioned in this book. In the earlier part of this book. Okay, so we got the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and the Federalists are the ones that were on the side of England, and the Anti-Federalists were on the side of French, because at the same time we've got the French Revolution, and England was involved, and there was a point where America stopped trading with France and only traded with England, and that really caused a lot of tension in America. So there was a lot of smearing, even though Hamilton was a private citizen at this time. Now we're going to get into his son. Now, Philip was I think his oldest son, his oldest child. I don't know if he had a daughter first. I really don't know the order, but his son Philip had like a strong personality, and he had said as a matter of fact, when I learned about people calling each other rascals, his son called somebody a rascal, and he didn't want to take it back, and he wound up getting into a duel, and he wound up getting killed in the duel. And they were really devastated. It really broke their hearts. But then 3 years later, him and Aaron Burr, a little bit before 3 years there. See, the date that I'm going to talk about next is July 12th, 1804. This is the end of Alexander Hamilton because he gets into a duel with Aaron Burr. The reason why they get into this duel is because he was at a dinner party and he was talking badly about Aaron Burr, and Aaron Burr heard about it and demanded an apology, and Alexander Hamilton did not apologize. So they got in a duel. Now, before they got into the duel, Alexander Hamilton actually wrote a will, and he wrote a farewell, and then he went through it, and his shot missed. Now, we don't know if he intentionally missed or he did it on purpose, but Aaron Burr, and at the time, Aaron Burr was the Vice President of the United States by Thomas Jefferson. Interesting fact, right? And if you watched my past video, the plague was actually featured in this book. I learned about the capital was in New York City for 1 year, then it moved to Pennsylvania for 10 years, and then it moved to DC where it is now. A lot of interesting information, but I could go deeper in this, but this is as far as I want to take this review. Hopefully this is interesting and you learned something about the guy that's on your $10 bill. Okay, there's that. Okay, so now it's the part of the video. Okay, now it's the part of the video when I'm going to talk about the books that I'm going to read next. And right now, I actually going to talk about what I'm going to review next. I've got these two books that I've read already. These took me like an hour each. This is very short reading, but very interesting reading. A lot of great facts in both of these little magazine type books, And then I have this book that I've read a lot of this book over the years. This is a book that I've had for quite a long time, but this book I'm going to go through the whole thing. So I'm going to be done with this pretty quickly, but I don't know what I'm going to read after that. I'm thinking I might actually get into the book called Manhunt, which is about Abraham Lincoln's assassination and the manhunt that they went after James Booth. I don't know. I might read that. I don't know. I'm kind of like playing it by ear. And I still want to talk about the Sword of Shannara trilogy. I'm going to be making a video of that in the future. But yeah, I'm going to be making that video. I'm going to be making other videos. And of course, I'll probably be making a lot more poetry videos. So please come around and check those videos out. And I hope you have a nice day. Okay, that's the video. I want to thank you all for coming by. If you like the video, I want to thank you for those likes. If you want to like the videos in the future, thank you for those future likes. If you don't want to like the video, I want to thank you anyways. I don't want to give you a like. Thank you very much for being here. I love having everybody here. I love you all. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.